Good morning, April 24th, 2020. I'm Pastor Rusty. This is your daily inspo. Well, we live in a world today where if you don't take your part, you've got to make everything even. You've got to get even. You know, Jesus goes on in this Sermon on the Mount, this wonderful sermon, and he teaches about reconciliation over retribution. Listen to what he said. He said, "You have heard it said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth." Well, that was the teaching in the synagogue, and the scribes and the Pharisees and their teachers were saying. Moses said, get even. You need to make sure everything's balanced in life, or fair. I hate that word, but that's what we use all the time, fair. He says, but I say you don't resist an evildoer. But if anyone strikes you on the right cheek, turn the other cheek. Yeah, I haven't been tested on that one, and I struggle with that. Now, he's not saying that a country shouldn't defend itself, or that you shouldn't defend yourself against people that intrude. And some pacifists today take it that way, and they go to extremes. Don't ever resist. But that's not what Jesus is teaching. Jesus is teaching reconciliation over retribution. As a matter of fact, he goes on and says, if anybody wants to sue you and take your coat, give them your cloak as well. And if anyone forces you to go 1 mile, go the second mile. Now, it was common in that day, to my understanding, that if a Roman soldier came up to you and they had, like, I think somewhere near an 80-pound pack and dropped it at your feet and said, carry it, you were required by law to carry it 1 mile. And the people of that day had that measured out. They would take so many steps, and at the end of those steps, they just dropped the pack, because that's all they were required by law to do. And that's what everybody wants to do, is what's required of me. But Jesus says, listen, if somebody says carry the pack a mile, carry it too. Go ahead and give. And by that way, you begin to change people's opinions of who you are, and that the system isn't always broke, or that everybody's not out after their own. So as Christians, how can we consider going the extra mile? He went on and said, give to everyone who begs from you, and do not refuse anyone who wants to borrow from you. Well, that's a difficult one. As a matter of fact, I remember a famous atheist on the internet so many years ago, and I don't know whatever happened with it, but he was offering that challenge. He was saying, if you're a real Christian, then give me all your money. And that would be disprove that you're a Christian. Well, people that don't understand the Scripture don't understand the Scripture. What Jesus is saying here is seek reconciliation. Don't always have to get even. Do what you can, so that first of all, you can glorify God, and secondly, you can change people's opinions. We as Christians today, we could do a little work there. We could do a little work in changing people's opinions, because the vocal minority that's on the line, online, or marching in the streets, and everybody wants to have it even and have it their way, and you're not going to take anything from me. I'm just going to get even. But see, Jesus took what was understood, and he said, you understand the letter of the law, but let me tell you the spirit of the law. And then he told people, my kingdom is different. My people are different. Here are some things that are going to be evident as you go through life. Well, given to all those who beg from you, Proverbs even says, if you loan something out, don't loan it out with interest. So if somebody comes to you and they need to borrow something, the Bible says if you have it, let them borrow it. It's hard, isn't it? I'm really slow about letting people borrow my tools. I've never had them come back in one piece. And every time I borrow a tool, I end up having to fix it before I can return it, because I'm not going to return anything in less shape than when I received it. And I hope that people in my past that have loaned me or let me borrow when I returned it, that's why I hate to borrow anything. People say all the time, well, so-and-so's got the tool you need. Yeah, I don't want to borrow it, because if it breaks, and I got to buy it and give it back to him, so now I'm out the money, because that's just how I'm morally driven. That doesn't mean I'm right, but that's just how I think about things. I don't think I should cost anybody anything when I can take care of it. So let's look at this again. Turn the other cheek. Reconciliation. If somebody strikes you, don't escalate. If somebody is doing something to you, and they're vindictive, and people are that way, don't escalate. That's our choice today. That's something that we can do today. When something happens, don't escalate it. Don't fight back to that degree to keep everything balanced, because if you end up going to a court of law, the judge is going to look at it, and if you've got down in the mud with them and you're slinging mud too, all the judge is going to see is two people covered in mud, and he could just make an even pile out of money and split it. But if you'll turn the other cheek, if you will do what you can to garner a relationship with somebody that maybe is trying to provoke you, a soft answer, the Bible says, turns away wrath. That's something we can do today. Remember, this is the day the Lord hath made. Rejoice and be glad in it. I'm Pastor Rusty. I'll talk to you tomorrow.